Hello everyone and welcome to a new, slightly late video. Today, as you know from the title, I will be trying to help you guys learn Valk. Now what's different with this guide compared to any of the other ones I've made is that I'll be splitting it into two parts. The one you're watching is of course the first one about the 1v1, and it will be a 4v4 guide uploaded the day after this video goes up. The reason for this is I want to allow people who would like to learn Valk to do so without having to click on an hour-long video. Of course I always have timestamps, and this video is no different by the way, so make sure to check that if you're only interested in something specific, but most won't even click a video that long, which is understandable honestly. So you're watching part 1 of the guide. For a full experience, make sure to watch part 2 as well. Before we start, I want to address something that's been said to me multiple times, and understandably so, that my guides do not have enough visual examples, that they're kind of boring, etc. I get that and I will do my best to improve as much as possible, but at the same time I cannot spend as much time on each character guide as I would like, seeing as I create one almost every week. So I guess I'm kind of excusing my laziness here, but also telling you guys how it is. I can't possibly make hour-long guides every week for every hero with perfect clips for all situations, while at the same time working on all the other content that I do. But I do hear criticism, it is valid, and I'll try my best to improve. But alright, time to start. As per usual with my guides, we will be starting with 1v1 defense, then going into offense, all your mix-ups with Valk, describing all the tools available to you and their uses. Then we will move on to matchups. I will talk about any one that I find important or maybe weird, different. Then we will finish with punishers, and that will be the end of part 1. It will also work as a very good transition to part 2, as I will include revenge punishers in that section of the guide as well. So, let's get into it. Valk is situationally a very strong defensive hero. Depending on the matchup, she can beat out all or almost all of the opponent's offense with her backdash full block. I will go into more details about this in the matchups part of this video, but for now just know that it can be extremely useful and at the highest level is her strongest tool. Be careful though, as if you dodge an attack and the opponent can chain afterwards, you're going to get hit if you try to punish it. However, if you wait and block their follow-up, the bash and the subsequent light are going to be guaranteed. Her side dash lights are the next defensive tool. They were nerfed with her rework and now you have to do them later in the dash animation, but you can still punish many things with them. Remember, they are lights, so if you get parried, you're going to eat a lot of damage, unless of course you're against under Valk, in which case you'll take 24, but they chain into both lights and heavies, so you can start on your own pressure after countering an attack. Use them to punish bashes and committed heavies. Next up is her deflect or superior block. Not much to say about this one, except that there's a follow-up to it that many people don't know about. If you superior block a side attack from any character and do your deflect punish, which is heavy by the way, the top light afterwards is guaranteed. This also applies to top attacks against assassins, as they have reflex guard and so do not hold block, but it is not guaranteed that top superior blocks against steady guard heroes. And last, for her defense, there's the superior light. It works on all of her opener lights, just like Highlanders, and if you time it correctly, it deals 28 damage, is unblockable to make sure that it is confirmed, and it chains into your lights and heavies. It can be a great option select, as you can do it if you think that an opponent will either commit to their heavy or feint into guard break. The light will beat these two options, but of course it will lose to a heavy feint into parry, so be careful not to be too reckless with it, but it's something that you can use. I would not use it on light attacks personally, as the damage difference compared to a parry is very small, and there's one more thing to be careful of. It takes 300 milliseconds after changing guard for you to be able to throw this light attack. So if they have a quick heavy and they're throwing it from a different direction than the one your guard is in, you will not be able to use it. In that case, simply block, parry with a heavy, or with her zone, which is a rather weak and risky but still somewhat usable option select. Now her offense. She has a few tools that she can use, and so let's now go through all of them. First up is her shield crush, which you can perform by starting a heavy and soft feinting it. This applies to all her heavies and guarantees a light attack, after which you can keep your pressure up as that light goes straight into the chain finisher. You can also chain on whiff, which is very useful against characters with no dash attack. The bash itself is 500 milliseconds, but if you delay your soft feint input, it can be as quick as 433. If you don't know what I mean, watch Freeze's video that I will leave in the description. Learning how to delay your bash consistently is going to be a very important aspect of your 1v1 play, especially at a decent level on PC. As the shield crush is her main offensive tool, there's naturally a few mix-ups attached to it. The most important one, in my opinion, is if you're playing against someone who is dodging your shield crush on prediction. You can feint a heavy into another heavy into shield crush, and that will track the preemptive dodge. Sometimes you could also feint into guard break, of course, but if they're dashing at the correct time, they will be able to counter guard break, so the mix-up I mentioned is going to be very useful for you. And of course, if the opponent knows that that's what you do, you can simply feint your first heavy into shield crush or feint it twice into another heavy. You get what I mean. It's all about conditioning your enemy. Another mix-up, or maybe rather a consequence of having a bash on your heavy, is that people will be less likely to go for many parries on your heavy attack. This means that you can throw a few more than usual to slowly chip them down, go further into your chains, or simply make them start going for parries, at which point you can start using shield crush again. Then you have your chains. At all points in your chain, you can throw a light or a heavy attack, and in place of a finisher, you can throw a sweep instead. The chained and finisher top lights are 400 ms. Again, it's only on top, and on sides they're 500. Heavies deal more damage the further you get into the chain, and as I said earlier, they can all be self-feinted into a shield crush. Sweep guarantees 35 damage if it hits, but it is 600 ms, so I would not recommend opening with it. If you do manage to get to your finishers, I would recommend throwing a left side heavy first to catch any possible dodge attempts, and then once they've stopped doing that, you can try sweep. I don't think I've played against a single player who dodged all my sweeps, but of course it is not a good move if used against somebody who knows how to fight against a bulk. Your sidelight finishers also knock opponents away and involve blood. At specific ranges you get different punishes, but generally speaking you can get the light if you're close and the heavy if you're far. In general, be careful with your finishers, be it lights, heavies or the sweep, as they all have extremely long recoveries and can be gut broken even if the opponent is out of stamina. When it comes to your light, there's one more thing I have to say. The 400 ms top lights are undodgeable if buffered after they block your heavy, get hit by it, or get hit by a light attack. So if you know they're dodge heavy, you can do that. But again, be careful not to get parried. When it comes to her offense, that's mostly it, honestly. Shield Crush is your main tool, so use it. Base your offense around it. Your out of stamina pressure can be alright if you delay your bashes to make them unreactable. You can maybe get a few of them in before they regain stamina. Maybe you can get a guard break if they mess up their dodge timing. Basically, adapt to what your enemy seems to be doing and try to exploit it as much as possible when they're out of stamina. Valk is also the first character where I've started thinking about frame advantages and disadvantages, namely with her heavy. When it's okay to start one up, and perhaps even more importantly, when it is not okay. This refers to situations like against Kong Bash, where if he bashes you and does his light, you should not be starting up your own bash, as if he does another one, he will hit you out of it. This is extremely matchup specific and something I will not talk more about, but I just wanted to add this in here for you guys, so you know where I'm coming from. Alright, so now it's time to move on to matchups. This is where Shield Tackle is going to come into play very heavily, and also you guys will get to see some more specifics on using the Superior Light and Shield Crush. Versus Warden. It completely shuts down Warden's offense, even harder than Nobushi's hidden stance, as it has nowhere near the stamina costs. This is even more important now that Warden is stronger against rolls, which doesn't affect this matchup at all. All you have to do is Shield Tackle on reaction to orange, let it go if he commits to a level 1 shoulder bash, and cancel into a dash and guard break if he commits to a level 3 shoulder bash, and of course cancel into nothing if he doesn't commit to anything. I've already talked about this on my channel, but Valk completely destroys Warden's offense and there is nothing he can do offensively to deal damage to her. One more thing about this matchup, if a Warden dodges your Shield Crush early, he can get a shoulder bash punish, but if he does it a bit later, you can interrupt him with your 400 MS top line, so try it sometimes, but be careful because if they know that you're going to do it, you can of course get parried and take 40 damage. Versus Kensei. What you can do against Kensei is, on reaction to his top heavy, go into your Shield Tackle, and if you use it in correct timing, you can beat out all the options. This does take time and practice, but it's something you can use. Another tool you have is your Superior Light. If you keep your guard up the entire time you're fighting Kensei, you can light attack any top indicator and this will beat all options but top heavy dash feint into forward guard break, as Kensei has a superior block on his dodges. Other than that one thing he can do though, you beat all other options. You will Superior Light if he does top light, interrupt if he does anything else. Versus Kong. Here you can use Shield Tackle to beat some of Conqueror's options, however you cannot punish some of them and there's a timing where Kong can simply guard break your backdash. Wouldn't recommend using it too much in this matchup, but you can try it a few times to possibly force the Kong into doing fewer bashes and more guard breaks, which is something you can easily punish on read. Also, the way you deal damage in this matchup is by using the double feint that I was talking about earlier, so try using that a little bit, as Kong can punish all your shield crushes, so be a little bit more safe with them, don't go for too many shield crushes against Kong. Versus Highlander. This is something we showed in the How to Counter Highlander video, but Valk can use Shield Tackle to counter all of Highlander's options, but a raw caber toss. In this matchup, mix up rolling away, using shield tackle and trying to interrupt his offensive stance with lights, heavies and heavy feints in order to put pressure on him. This is Berserker. Against him you can nullify most of his offense with shield tackle, and you can sometimes punish some of it, but due to his chains and recovery cancels, it can be very difficult, unless he hits into your full block or whiffs a guard break. Either way though, with proper timing, especially on PC, I don't think this would work very well on console, as it requires you to be able to distinguish light from heavy animation and backdash into shield tackle in reaction to it being a heavy, but on PC it is something you can do to keep yourself a bit more safe against Berserker. Versus Centurion. In this matchup, make sure to match your guard to his guard, and if he throws any indicators, light attack. This will superior light if he throws a light attack or an uncharged heavy. It will interrupt every other timing, beat out feint into guard break, and if timed properly, he will not be able to parry the light, due to Centurion's heavies having late feint timings. Be careful though, as you have to do it very quickly after seeing the indicator, and also you have to have your guard on the same side as his already. You cannot reactively switch guard and then use the superior light. Now versus all characters with dash attacks. If your opponent has a dash attack or bash and they play well, you cannot use your shield crush against them at all. The reason for this is, they can dodge on your heavy early enough to still be able to counter guard break, while at the same time being able to punish both your committed heavy and a soft feint into bash. This works especially well on characters like Kensei, Shaman and Orochi, who have very wide input windows for their dash attacks. What you can sometimes do, however, is use what I talked about at the beginning, and feint a heavy into another heavy that you then soft feint to a shield crush. Will not work always, but it is worth trying. Basically, feint as much as possible, don't commit to too many attacks as you're very easily punishable here. What about characters with no dash attacks? Well, against them everything looks a bit different. They cannot 100% reliably punish your shield crush, and so because of that, they have to rely on reading you after dodging the bash in order to be able to get any punishes. How this works is, if they dodge your shield crush and you either don't follow up at all or use a heavy, their guard break will connect. They will either guard break you out of whiff recovery of the bash itself, or out of the first 400 MS of the heavy, which is guard break vulnerable. So then, your option to beat out guard breaks is light attacking, preferably from top, as that's where your quickest attack comes from, or sides if they're expecting top. However, if your opponent is expecting you to throw out a light attack and is waiting to parry, you can either do nothing and just sit there, or throw out a heavy to hit them trying to parry at light timing. What I usually do is throw out the heavy and soft feint into another bash to keep my pressure going, possibly making them guard break next time, and then I start throwing out the late lights. However, most of the time, if I think my opponent is decent, I will not start out with just a naked light attack after whiffing shield crush. Now let's move on to dealing with the Woolen. There isn't that much here that will be specific to Valk, but I've tried to find as much as possible and I will tell you all about it now. So first, against Shaolin. It all depends on how he enters key stance, but most of the time you can avoid most mix-ups with shield tackle. If he whiffed a light or a heavy to go into his stance, you can avoid all options by simply backdashing into your full block. If he went into it after hitting you with a light attack, you can avoid everything but the unblockable heavy. However, if he went into it after hitting you with a heavy or after you block a heavy, you cannot avoid the key stance top light as well as the unblockable. Shield tackle is still very strong defensively, especially until the Shaolin player you're up against learns what he can do, which in matchmaking duels will probably take a while. Against Nusha, you cannot use your light to counter a trap as easily as with other heroes, due to her having superior block on the light, but what you can do is delay your light attack input a little bit and then press it to beat out the trap and get your damage. This way, you're interrupting the trap before the superior block frames start on your attack. Another way to do it is to unlock the moment you see trap and press light attack, but that requires slightly better reactions. I would advise against it. Other than that, you can of course dodge on prediction and use a dash attack, throw a heavy on light parry timing to beat out a possible light and the trap, but of course in that situation, you do lose to a raw heavy. So there's some things Valk can do, but it is a bit harder than with other heroes. So that's about it when it comes to matchups. Of course this doesn't cover all of them, but I think it does a good job of illustrating what to do in the more important, new and maybe weird ones. Hope you guys found this section useful. Let me know if there's any other characters you specifically struggle against and I will try to help you in the comments. For example, against Orochi, shield tackle beats Stormash every time and there is nothing Orochi can do there. So there are some more things, but just let me know if there's anything specific. So now let's move on to punishes. On light parry, you get a heavy. On heavy parry, forward dash light is confirmed. On guard break, you get a heavy. On guard break near a wall, you can throw them into it to guarantee a sweep. Sweep, however, is not guaranteed on just a simple Garbrick throw. Out of stamina Garbrick punish is heavy, light, sweep. Same with the out of stamina parry punish. Revenge activation punish is simply heavy into light. So that's about it for punishes, and that's about it also for the 1v1 part of the guide. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you thought of this part, what you generally thought of the idea of splitting the guide into 2 videos, whether you found it useful, and if there's anything I forgot to talk about. Be on the lookout for the next part, and see you guys next time.